I promise by the end of this video, you are going to have a better understanding on why living in the downtown Charleston area may not be the move for you. If you've been thinking about moving to Charleston, I'm sure you've probably looked into those historic homes in or around the downtown area. Now, downtown Charleston is certainly a hotspot filled with historic sites, amazing architecture, incredible dining, tons of shopping, and a thriving nightlife. However, it does come with some downsides that not everyone will love. My name is Shawn, your Charleston Realtor, and in this video, we're going to cover the top 5 reasons why you may want to think twice about living in downtown Charleston. Make sure you stay all the way to the end of the video because our last point is a doozy. So let's get to it. The first reason you may not like living in downtown Charleston is actually the flooding. Now, I'm not talking about those catastrophic floods that you may see in the news, though that is always a potential concern. Instead, I'm just talking about the fact that the Charleston Peninsula itself is more prone to having standing water than elsewhere. It's no secret that in Charleston, we get pretty severe weather from time to time. And anytime there's heavy rain, downtown is one of the areas most affected by flooding. According to the Post-Courier, our local paper, Charleston experienced 27 flood events rated moderate or higher in 2023. So this could be a big factor in your decision as a home buyer. Charleston has a long history of dealing with flooding, dating back to the colonial days. Some of the biggest factors contributing to the flooding downtown is just a function of geography. Think about it, it's a low-lying area that is more prone to storm surges and high tides. Combine that with infrastructure that may date back decades or even centuries, it's easy to see why this might be an issue. The city is taking action though. As recently as 2018, the Army Corps of Engineers embarked on an extensive risk management study, and they are building a 12-foot storm surge wall around most of the peninsula. Now, getting into specific flood mitigation efforts is a complicated topic that we could talk about in a later video, so we aren't going to cover that now. But if you want to talk about it in the future, leave us a comment down below. Now, while flooding or standing water is a concern for home buyers in the downtown Charleston area, it can still be a great investment. Over the past year, values have increased in downtown due to the fact that it's, well, historic Charleston and one of the most charming cities in all of America. If you are interested in buying property in downtown Charleston, the best way to mitigate risk is to take the flood maps into careful consideration. In Charleston, there are primarily 2 flood zones, X and AE. The X flood zone is considered low risk, as the area will only flood once every 500 years. These zones don't even require flood insurance. The AE flood zone is considered moderate risk, since FEMA has determined that these areas are prone to flooding once every 100 years. You can see that the orange zones are actually X flood zones, meaning that flooding isn't really a concern at all. However, as you go towards the coast, the flood zone shifts from X to AE, and in these areas, you'll be required to have flood insurance. Now, as the second reason you may not want to live in the downtown Charleston area is the traffic. Charleston is a major tourist destination, attracting millions of visitors annually. This can lead to crowded streets, long lines at popular restaurants, and a general sense of congestion, especially during that peak tourist season in the summer. Like any other populated urban area, you're going to experience traffic. With only 2 main roadways going into the downtown area, they tend to get pretty congested. Highway 26 is the main artery approaching Charleston from the north, and Highway 17 is the access to the peninsula, either from West Ashley or Mount Pleasant. Peak times for traffic in downtown Charleston typically align with standard commuting hours based on numerous factors. Looking at this travel time chart from TomTom, you can expect slower travel time throughout all of the weekdays during commuting times. Slower travel times normally begin between 7 a.m. and 8 a.m. and get a little slower around lunchtime. You can see that the worst travel times in Charleston are normally from 3 to 5 p.m. Tuesday through Thursday, and from noon to 5 p.m. on Friday. The longest expected travel time is actually on Wednesday around 5 p.m. On weekends, you can expect slightly slower travel time starting on Saturday around 11 a.m., and that continues pretty much throughout the day. During peak tourist seasons in the spring and summer, traffic tends to be heavier throughout the day, especially around popular attractions and historic sites. Special events like festivals, farmers markets, parades, and local sporting events cause temporary spikes in traffic that can make living in downtown more difficult. Also, it wouldn't be Charleston if weather didn't influence traffic patterns. Inclement weather can slow down traffic in the downtown area, especially during periods of heavy rainfall, and some streets getting shut down entirely. But again, there is a silver lining to traffic in the downtown area. Throughout most of the fall and winter season, traffic is pretty minor, especially when school is not in session. When traffic isn't at peak hours, you can normally navigate through the city really quickly. And let's face it, you're living in a city, so you don't have to drive everywhere. Charleston is actually extremely walkable, with groceries, restaurants, and workplaces likely just a few blocks away. Now, the third reason you may want to choose a different area other than downtown would be maintenance and preservation restrictions within the old and historic districts. The city has many historic buildings with strict preservation guidelines and regulations. If you want to make alterations to your house, you typically need to go through the BAR, or the Board of Architectural Review, for approval. Think of the BAR as a cross between a very intrusive homeowners association and an overbearing local government. Ron Swanson would hate it.
Hey, Ron, you're not going to slaughter that pig here, are you?
Not to worry. I have a permit.
This just says I can do what I want.
This can be a headache for homeowners within these districts and can limit what you can and you can't do with renovating and updating your house. Most minor alterations such as interior painting, site work, signage, or repairs are typically reviewed by the BAR's staff and do not require full board approval. But any external alterations will need to go through a full review, and that can take it up to 30 days. It's a pretty lengthy process. Even so, if you are making interior changes that affect the structural integrity of the house, they may require approval. Take, for example, windows. Say you want to replace windows in your home. Normally, you'd hire a contractor who might just go grab some windows from Home Depot and then install them. Not the case in downtown Charleston. The BAR will prohibit Home Depot windows. Only wooden frame windows are sufficient to maintain the aesthetic vibe of the city. On top of that, everything needs to be approved through the BAR, so your contractor is going to have to wait weeks or months in order to start the job. Also, permitting can be kind of a pain as well in Charleston. All that to say, while this may be a negative for home buyers that want to have full control over their home, it can be a benefit if you value that historical look that makes the downtown Charleston area so popular. This also helps maintain property value, since this is pretty much guarantees somebody can't come in, demolish a historical building, and build a new and sprawling mansion. It's just not allowed. It's not possible. Now, the fourth reason you may not want to live in downtown Charleston is parking, or rather lack thereof. It can be pretty difficult to find a parking spot during the peak tourist season or during major events. Another factor that makes parking a challenge is that the historical streets of Charleston were not designed for modern traffic and parking needs. Sure, they may have been able to squeeze a few horse and buggies back in the day, but unfortunately there's not much that we can do about that in the modern time. It's not like the city can expand streets or add parking spots due to the historical nature of the city. Residential parking is pretty limited depending on the area. It is common for residents to compete with visitors for on-street parking, which can be pretty frustrating. However, there are designated residential parking zones that are affordable and easy to get a permit for. For homeowners, the cost is $15 per vehicle, and for renters, it's $10 a vehicle. Traffic congestion can make finding a parking spot much longer than you would expect, especially if you don't find a parking spot at your immediate destination and instead have to start looping around the city on one-way streets. The City of Charleston also enforces parking regulations with frequent ticketing for violations. Despite the negatives, there are many positives to the parking situation. The saving grace is that there are multitudes of parking garages. Even though they're not on every street or corner, there are still enough to handle tourism and commuters so that the residents can park in their own designated spots. And guess what? You don't really need to have plentiful parking on every street. Downtown is so walkable with easy routes to multiple popular restaurants and other attractions. It's also a bikeable city with designated bike lanes, destinations, and connectivity. On top of that, there are also plentiful parking meters in the downtown area, and they're pretty affordable at only $2 an hour. Parking meters are enforced daily from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., excluding Sundays and city holidays. But if you have that residential parking permit, it really doesn't matter. Now, the fifth and final reason the downtown area may not be a good fit for your next home purchase is the high cost of living. Downtown is known for its high property values. The cost of living can be significantly higher than other parts of the city and the region. We've already covered how historic homes and preservation efforts have contributed to higher prices earlier in the video, but there are other factors that make downtown more expensive. One of the biggest reasons downtown is so expensive is that, well, it's downtown freaking Charleston. One of the most historic cities in the entire United States and one of the last remaining bastions of colonial architecture. With close proximity to waterfront parks, popular tourist attractions, and great dining options, the area is naturally going to be in high demand for home buyers who just want a piece of history. Now factor in that they aren't building any new homes downtown in any sizable number, so what you see is what you get. Thinking back to high school economics with a basic supply and demand curve, with limited supply and high demand, price is naturally going to be high. According to our 2024 MLS data, the average sales price for a single-family detached home was just north of $2 million. The average condo or townhome runs about half of that at $1.1 million. It should be noted that between 2023 and 2024, prices for single-family detached homes have actually stagnated. We haven't seen much of an increase in price. The same can't be said for condos or townhomes, which has seen a staggering 44% increase between the 2 years, from $715,000 to $1.1 million. This is probably due to increased demand for more affordably priced homes, relatively speaking, in an era of elevated interest rates. Everything needs to be put in perspective though. The median price point in the greater Charleston area is $400,000, but downtown the median price point is nearly 4 times that at $1.5 million. Cost is one of the biggest deciding factors for most people when trying to buy a new home, and prices in downtown Charleston are the most significant barrier to entry. So there you have it. Those are my top 5 reasons why you may not want to live in downtown Charleston. Take it with a grain of salt. Charleston is still one of the most charming places to live, and the heart of the city is where the real magic is. People move to Charleston to be, well, in Charleston. Charleston is at the heart of our metro, and it still remains a great place to live. Every submarket is going to have its quirks and its drawbacks. It's my job as a real estate agent to help folks relocating to the Lowcountry weigh the pros and cons of each area. I would love to earn your business and be your resource for real estate in Charleston. My contact information is in the video description below, and I would love to help you on your home buying journey. Shoot me a text or an email, and I'll see you in the next video.